Hello, my beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so excited you're here and even more excited for you to listen to this episode where I am interviewing Sonja Rasula, who is the founder of Unique Markets and the Unique Assembly. So before we dive into the episode, I want to read her formal bio because honestly, it's insane. In 2008, Sonja self-funded Unique Markets by risking, wait for it, her entire 401k retirement savings and never looked back. Since then, she's become one of just 2% of women-owned businesses in the U.S. to hit $1 million a year. She is a proud AAPI-owned national market owner in the country and has been credited for fueling and leading the Shop Small revolution for over 13 years. I am so excited for you guys to meet her and hear her story. We're going to dive into building communities all around the world, mentoring. We're going to talk about starting your business. You're going to hear a lot. And I'm so excited to hear what you think about this episode and your biggest takeaway. Let's dive in. Hello. I am so excited to have you here, Sonja. Welcome to She Did It Anyway podcast. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I can't wait. So for everybody that has heard the intro, I know that they are super excited to hear about your story and really how you got to where you are now. But I will tell you, so we met at Create and Cultivate, LA, last year, 2021, and you led a mentor session. And really what caught my attention at the mentor session was, yes, your story to obviously like how insane your pop-ups are now and just the markets that you do, but the actual mentorship that you gave at the mentor session was insane. You answered every question. There was no gatekeeping. And I learned more in that 30-minute session that I did probably at the whole conference. So I'm excited to have you so everybody can learn from you. But for people that don't know who you are, walk us through who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so I, like you, have a corporate background. So like I started out working as a journalist. I wasn't laid off, but I have been fired a couple times. So I do know what that's like too. But I was really, really good at all of my jobs. Like I excelled at them, in fact. I made these Fortune 500 companies a ton of money, but I wasn't satisfied. And I think like my soul wasn't happy. So at some point, I decided I have to leave the corporate world, which is the scariest decision to make for anyone because it's like comfort and a regular paycheck.
Yep.
And I kind of dove into the world of nothingness, moved out to Los Angeles, did not have a job, had no contacts, had no friends. I mean, it was like I was just starting fresh. And eventually, while I was sitting in traffic, I had this idea where I was just like, why am I driving all the way to the West Side to find a gift for my best friend? And then I'm going to go to this other store in Eagle Rock to get like the cool wine for her. And I'm just spending so much time driving around. And so I had this idea in my head where I envisioned a giant shopping event that would be curated. So like the best of the best. And it would feature small businesses. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this will be a fun project. Like it was almost like a dare to myself. Like I need something to do. I'll just create this little thing and that would be it. But it was successful from day one. And so then at that point, I realized I was like a so-called small business owner and I kept going. But it was not my intent to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. That was never what I thought I was going to do.
Or be out of the 2% of women that hit $1 million in a year. That's crazy to me that it was this spark of an idea, this like aha moment of like, okay, I'm just going to do this because I'm experiencing this inconvenience in my life. So I'm going to bring this to life. And so this was what, 2008?
Yeah.
From my understanding.
Recession.
And it's in your bio, I had shared that you took out your 401k.
Yes.
I need to know, like, friends, family in your life, like, were people like, hell yeah, do it, you're going to be successful? Like, I can't even imagine that.
No. no one was positive about it, which honestly, in some weird way, I'm like, maybe that's the sign that you're on the right track sometimes, right? But like, I think my parents thought they were very worried about me. They were like, what is she doing? Is this a midlife crisis? You know, like all the parental things that I think someone would think. And all of my friends were like, hold up, you're taking out 50,000, like you're taking out all of the money that you own in life and you're going to put it towards just renting one thing for like 2 days. That's insane. Yeah. And it is a little insane when I look back on it, but I will say from when I was a kid to working for Fortune 500 companies to running my own business, I have always been a risk taker. Like even in those traditional roles of a 9 to 5, I was always pushing boundaries. Like I had a huge department with about 30 people. We were creating websites for Home and Garden TV, Food Network, like these massive media companies. And I convinced the higher ups that all of my editors needed to work from home 1 day a week. This was like in the year 2000. Like,
can you imagine? I can't imagine that.
Which now is normal. Everyone's working from home. But back then I was like, no, like this work environment is too loud. It's too chaotic. They need time to edit and write. And like, you can't do that here. And so I did that. So like, I think I've always been like a risk taker and someone who pushes the boundaries.
Which is so great. And I actually think that the most successful entrepreneurs have those characteristics and are also a little bit of like delusional because they just think that this like idea could work. Even if it doesn't, I'm going to risk everything to like at least say that I did it. So that's really cool. Even just thinking back to when I was laid off, I had a severance and I was like, I'm going to use my severance. I'm going to use my savings. I'm going to do everything in my power to bring this to life. Yeah. And it's insane just to think about if it didn't work. And imagine if you actually did listen to all those people that were like, hey, this is a terrible idea, or hung up on this thought of like, it might not work, I'm not going to try it. But instead you double down of like, I'm going to do it. So I want to talk about 2008, you do your market. What does that look like versus what it is now?
Yeah, it looks the same. The exact same, which is kind of funny. I mean, obviously it's gone through a lot of changes, and visually I love to look at the original photos and I'm like, the style, like what were we all thinking? Yeah. Like I look at the event photos and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look at photos of me and my team and what like our hairstyles and I'm just like, oh, cringe. But the event itself has remained pretty much the same, especially the business model. I started off with 225 sellers.
That's insane.
Which is larger than most trade shows. And so when I say it's the same, it's because I didn't start small. Like in my head, and this is the advice that I give to all entrepreneurs and small business owners, I believe within certain industries, in order to make a splash, you have to go big. So all the friends who are like, are you crazy? You're taking this money? Like you're going to lose it all. They couldn't see the vision that I had. And their feedback was like, why don't you just get like an empty parking lot at like the farmer's market and do a little market there? Like that's what they could see. But I was like, first of all, that already exists. I'm not here to create something that already exists. And second, you really have to go big. I didn't want to like start small and slowly grow. I was like, let's do this. Let's see if it works. And then I'll think about everything else afterwards.
From the sellers that are there and the vendors that are there, what were they always like? Did everybody always from that side understand your vision? Were there vendors that were like, no, I don't want to be there. Like it's not worth to go. So I want to talk about that. And then I want to talk about the attendees, like getting people to attend.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm very lucky that I am a trained journalist. Yeah. I went to journalism school. I worked in that world for a decade. So the one thing that journalists are very, very good at doing is researching. So like I took my time and I made sure to look at what competitors were doing, look at all the different blogs, newspapers, radio shows that I could approach to try to get press. So like from a marketing perspective, I knew I was pretty good. Like I'm good at spreading the word, but I did not realize, and I underestimated the feedback from small businesses. I thought it would be somewhat easy to sign 225 people up, and it it was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Like it would like that crushed my ego, which was great. Like it really humbled me. I had friends, I mean, like I had a whole letter that I would send out to people introducing myself. To get those 225, I probably approached about 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's a lot of time. If you think like it takes 5 minutes to send an email, 5 times 1,000. I mean, I put the time in to try to find people to do it. And the reason why there was so much pushback was because there wasn't anything like this that existed. So they were like, why should I pay hundreds of dollars to be part of something when your background isn't even in events, which was like a common thread at the beginning. People were like, you're not in the event world. You don't know what you're doing. And then the other thing was that we sell tickets to our markets. So you pay an entry fee to come in and shop and support small businesses. Still to this day, 2023, people cannot wrap their head around that. They're like, well, I don't pay to go to the mall. Valid question, totally different. We're not a mall.
Yeah.
None of the businesses you're shopping from are massive corporations with like terrible workplace environments and terrible employee practices. Like these are small businesses and artists who are following their dreams. But that was the other pushback that I got, which was like, why should we pay to get in? But thousands of people paid to get into that very first show. And we just kept getting larger and larger from that very, very first show.
How many people attend now?
With the caveat that COVID killed our business. So we had 2 years of just like chaos. At the last market, we had just under 7,000 people attend. But this is a space that is small. Like we were at capacity and it's 6 hours for 2 days. So in 12 hours, 7,000 people are coming in to support the small businesses, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's insane. And that is why you pay a fee to get in, is because not only, yes, are you supporting the small businesses, but you're spending so much time curating the perfect small business to attend that is going to be able to receive that support.
Yes, that's really what I bring to the table, which is that like we are curating for businesses that are ready to take that leap. They're not businesses that are like just starting, who don't have inventory, don't know how to charge like sales tax. Like these are people who are ready to take that next step. And some of the businesses sell hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Like we're not only, when I say small business, people always think small, but I like to say like small business is actually big business. It's just that it's like real individual independent owners and founders behind them.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've built such amazing relationships with so many of them that have attended.
Yeah.
And during our session at Create and Cultivate, you were talking about community. And I remember my question specifically was, how do you find or build a community in more than one city, especially if you're not local to that city? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I remember. And you were like, I can see the whole scene. And you were like sitting on my left. And it was a great question, by the way, because often there's like lots of great questions, but like yours really stood out. Okay. I mean, it's interesting to me with social media. It's such a tool. I do also think that some social media is dying, but I do think it's an amazing tool for small businesses. But also it's like finding ambassadors and finding people who already know what you're doing in different parts of the country, in different cities, and then like capitalizing on them knowing their community and their city and, the scene.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know what's cool in Phoenix, but someone on the ground does.
How many cities did you have pre-COVID and how many cities do you have now? I know a lot has changed.
Yeah, pre-COVID, there were sometimes up to 10.
It's insane. So
10 cities doing 10 markets, trying to get them all done in December. So we would have multiple cities per weekend. Wow. And I look back on that and I'm like, wow, that was really ambitious. And I was exhausted and physically like kaput. Yeah. So COVID might have been like a good kind of wake up call
Yeah.
to sustainability. And just like, I always think like, the terms like health and wellness are thrown around all the time, but like actually
Yeah.
it did give me a chance to be like, wow, I'm really proud of the fact that we had all those cities, but I couldn't do it all. Like that's crazy for one person to be like overseeing production for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken a major step back, and now we're in LA, Portland, and DC.
So amazing. And how big is your team?
It's really only 3 people full time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's 3 people doing everything. And then we have a lot of amazing event staff and freelancers who help like create the vision that we need to for the markets. But again, like they only take place 3 weekends a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to ramp up staffing before each market, but in between, it's just that core team. And I will say this, pre-COVID, the team was 7 or 8. And so it's less than half. And it's shocking to me that I used to have that many.
Yeah.
It's like I kind of wonder, like, why did I have that many?
That actually leads me. So you have a podcast, SOS. And I like the tagline of like the lifeline for entrepreneurs, right? The entrepreneur lifeline. And for the She Did It Anyway podcast, we ask our guests to submit like, what is the value? What can you provide to this podcast, right? And I wanted to read what you wrote because I thought it was just so crazy to see all of this come to life. And I want us to start giving some business advice to our listeners because a lot of them are either entrepreneurs that are starting off or aspiring entrepreneurs and just don't know where to like begin. That's the number one question that I'm constantly getting of like, where do I even begin? But you wrote, I had 0 event or production experience before starting the markets. I had no finances or investors. I risked and took out my entire 401k, 50K to start the business. I'm a woman of color. And because I had moved back to LA just a couple of years before, I had no community, no mentors, no large groups of friends or peers to pull from and get help from. And on top of this, I have a disability, a disease called narcolepsy. If I can do it, anybody can.
Yeah.
What? I read that and I'm not joking. Like I told you earlier, like I felt like I turned into a journalist when I was prepping for these interviews because I was like, I'm going to read everything, every news article. Like I'm going to learn about this person so much. And I read that one paragraph and I was so inspired. And there have been so many days where I am frustrated that I don't have investors and I don't have all of this funding. I am frustrated that not every, place that I go to, I have these communities and mentors there. And it's insane to see how successful you can be with having all of these things that most people would allow to hold them back. So when we think about all of this, what would you say like the best advice that you have gotten that has really helped the trajectory of your business?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question because, and Jacqueline and I talk about this a lot, actually. Jacqueline Johnson, who I know you also have as a guest on your podcast, before she started creating Cultivate, before there was Girl Boss, before the world knew about entrepreneurship as an option, really, and made it sexy, like we didn't have mentors. There weren't conferences anyone could go to, no matter the size of the business, no matter what you were creating. So like that question of yours was like, what is the best advice you ever got? Like, I didn't get any advice. Like I've never had someone who was like, let me help you out. Like never. So I would say that the best advice really would be like my own gut feeling and like the advice that I give myself, which is like when I'm faced with a decision or when I'm faced with trying to figure something out or decide which path to go, I don't really allow a lot of people to infiltrate. Even now when I do have lots of people that I can talk to about stuff, I will listen to advice. And it's funny since I have a podcast where all I do is give advice. But The best advice I believe one can give oneself is to listen to their own gut, because there are too many people out in the world giving advice. And so often, like the best-selling books about business, those people have never owned a business in their life. Like, they're great journalists and they're great writers, but they've never owned a business. They write about people who own businesses. So it's very interesting to me when you really like get down into it. It's like, I think you are the only person who knows your true capabilities and your true vision and also your boundaries. And if you're willing to push those to the end, like if you're willing to jump off the cliff, my guess is you're going to figure out how to like sew a parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. I feel like that's going to be just like a soundbite within itself because it's so true. And there is so much noise out there. Like there really is. And I am one of those people where like I am just an information junkie. Like
I mean, I love podcasts.
Yeah,
I listen
like
to them all.
love podcasts. I love attending events. I love consuming content. But I will tell you, sometimes leaving events, I am burnt out from all of the different advice that I have, that has like been poured into me that I don't even know where to begin with the advice. And I do think that because of all the noise that exists, you kind of start losing that like how to tap into that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Like you start like self-doubt always takes over, I feel like, in all stages, but definitely in entrepreneurship, I feel like you're constantly second guessing, like, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? And with your podcast, you do give a lot of advice. And I know that you are starting the Unique Assembly. Yeah. And I would love to talk about that mentorship session, or mentor session part of it. But I would love to know, like, what are the questions that you're constantly getting from entrepreneurs that you feel are like holding them back? What is holding them back from like taking that leap or getting to the $1 million?
It's the same ones that you get. It's surprising. Yeah. Like everyone has the same issues. Like it's like you don't want to put people into boxes and generalize. And then you realize the more and more that you do this and the longer that you do this, oh shit, like everyone is the same. Yeah. Actually, like tear away all the things. And they're all just like standing there being like, which way do I go? It's usually like, when do I start? How do I start? It's also usually a lot about social media, which I think is interesting, especially in 2023, because I do think that social media as we know it is like going to change. The opportunities just aren't there that were there 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And so, yeah, I mean, it's usually the social media question of like, how do I get more followers? Yep. How do I get more likes? How do I get more engagement? Like it's usually very specific questions about social media. And to me, you have to step back from that question. And really it's like, okay, why are you asking that? Is it because you think it will help your business? And I'm assuming usually the answer is yes. And then it's like, okay, so then from that answer, let's go to like, well, how is your website? How are your products? Like, do you have a business? Because people forget, like, they just think, oh God, I got to be on Instagram and then I'll have a business. Yeah. And it's like, it's so much more than that. But I would say, yeah, the most popular questions are like, how do I start? When do I start? How much money do I need to start? And it's those answers are different for everyone. Depending on like their story, their background, what they have, who they have around them. But in general, I will say with 100% certainty, most people will never start. And that makes me really sad, which is why I have the assembly, why I do mentorship, why I speak at conferences, because it's so simple. Like the only thing that more people need to start is just like a sense of self-worth, truly, and value. Yeah. And it's sad when you try to explain that to someone who is like, but I just want to know, is 20,000 enough in my bank account to start? And I'm like, it actually has nothing to do with the money.
Right. Or is this the perfect post to post?
Right.
Or do I need to be on TikTok? Do I need to have two Instagrams, like one for my business and one for my personal? It's like all of these questions that are like, none of that actually matters at the end of the day. Yeah. It ends up being, and again, going back to how you even started the Unique Markets, is like, it literally was just this feeling of you being like, I'm going to do this. I know this is going to work, and I'm going to bet everything on it. Like,
Yeah.
you went big. I've never actually heard someone say out loud of like, I'm not going to like start small and scale. I'm going all in. Like, I love that concept. And it is true. It goes down to that self-worth and believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know, being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
entrepreneur puts you through the ringer. Like, I remember starting my company the same time my husband started his company, while we were homeschooling our 7-year, or at that time 4-year-old, because of COVID. And I was like, we're going to kill each other. Like, genuinely, like, this is not going to work for any of us.
Yeah.
And it was hard to find that self-worth. It was hard to find that, like, that confidence that I was able to do it, because I was so exhausted with how hard entrepreneurship is and just building a business is. And so, what, for you personally, what are those things that like ground you? How do you feel like you, because I know you can't just get up every day feeling like, hell yeah, I'm going to do this. There's no way.
No.
I would not believe you if you said that. So what are the things that you do that kind of like keep you in line?
Yeah, I mean, there are days, and there have been days. And so like, it's very impressive that you like did it through COVID and you were homeschooling. Like, I don't have kids, so that's a huge caveat right there. There are days that were so dark where you just truly, like, I will look in the mirror. It sounds like a movie where you're like, I was staring at myself in the mirror, but like, yeah, you're just like in the bathroom doing something, trying to be normal and, you know, put yourself together. And then like something in your brain just snaps and you just stand there and stare at yourself and you're like, I don't know if I'm happy. I don't think I should just stop doing this. I've been doing this for long enough. Like, terrible thoughts start to enter your mind. And once in a while, I do let those take me down a road where like for hours, I will just be in like a funk.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, throughout COVID, there were times when I was just in a terrible mindset for maybe even a couple days. And I've never let that happen to me before. Obviously, we were dealing with a lot as a universe.
Yeah.
But when I recognize that I'm in one of those kind of like moods, I find it really important to like remind myself that like it will pass. This is just a thing. If you need to like be depressed and sleep or just like watch Netflix for 14 hours until your eyes are bleeding, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
But you have to go to bed, wake up the next morning, and like, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's usually what I do. So I'll wake up in the morning and it's just like, are you going to lie here and feel sorry for yourself? Feel like whatever the thing is that's bothering you, you're just going to let it take over your life? Or are you going to like get up and start attacking things and just choose to be happy? And so I now know the steps. Like, I need to recognize it.
Yep.
And then I need to like move on. Like, the faster you move on, the better I feel. Like, and it's funny because even like, I think I even had something like this like last month where I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing this for so long. Haven't gotten a book deal. Like, where's my fucking book deal? Like,
Literally,
these terrible things
yeah.
that I've been around for like 13 years. I'm like this huge leader. I'm the only Asian owned market in the entire United States. I did it by myself, like, you know, and so there's this dialogue that happens in my head, which is like, why don't I have this? Why haven't other people recognized me? And then you just have to like, again, recognize that you're in a terrible place.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second. Forbes actually just called you like the millionaire maker. Like, why are you like, open your eyes, be happy, like, go for a walk, get outside and come back and like,
Start over. I love that you said like you allow yourself to feel your feelings. Like, that is one of the biggest things. Like, I love feeling my feelings. Like,
I'm a Pisces.
Yeah, like I'm an Aquarius, so I feel like I'm also very stubborn at sometimes of like ignoring what's happening, but like putting a Band-Aid. But I think there's so much power in really just acknowledging I feel like shit. Yeah. I'm spiraling right now, and that is okay. I'm going to do that, but I get to choose to start over tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, I am not going to keep bringing this over because it doesn't do anything at the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
These like
yeah.
negative thoughts and like just like negatively talking to yourself. And so
Yep.
with that, I think that yes, there is a lot of power in like that self talk and telling yourself, okay, I'm going to take the day, I'm going to move on. But I do think mentorship and community plays a whole part of it. Like
100%.
I would argue that I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the mentors and if it wasn't for the community that I built throughout the years, starting with no community and starting with no mentor. Because similar to you, like when I first started out as an entrepreneur, I mean, to this day, I only have a handful of people in my life that I know, like personally growing up with, that are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Before that, everybody, like my family are doctors,
Yeah.
working at VP. Like it's just, it's insane to
Like
them.
normal jobs.
Normal jobs.
Yes.
To this day, I don't actually think my parents know what I do.
No.
And
My parents have literally called me an alien. And I'm like, how do you think that makes me feel?
Right.
Like, but like, obviously they mean it with like love and
Yeah.
it's funny to them. But yes, like both my parents are academics. So
Yeah.
they get a paycheck.
Mhm.
They also have a sweet fucking pension.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's actually insane when I learned about like how much they will be making when they're retired doing nothing until the day they die. I was like, wait, where is this money coming from? And so like they don't know what it's like to risk.
Yeah.
They really don't. And so they do think that I'm the alien of the family because neither of them have ever had to like push truly.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done amazing things in their lives and they're actually both like huge inspirations of mine and like have a very different, like I had a very different like upbringing than most people. My dad stayed at home and my mom worked. So like that's probably where
So
like my
interesting.
ambitious side comes
Yeah.
from. I was like, women can do anything because my mom did everything. And my sister's also very successful, but she has like a normal, she's a film editor. So it's like they can tell people at parties like our film editor daughter, and then it comes to me and they're like, she has these markets, they're really cool, but like they don't know.
Yeah. And, it's funny. Like I was the opposite. Like my parents grew up, I had nothing. We genuinely, like we had nothing. And so
let me just say like with only one person working, like my dad didn't have a job.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
like did not have
crazy
a job. He was like a poet. So yeah, we didn't have anything.
Yeah, so it's just like it's interesting. Like when we moved here from Egypt, my parents literally started from scratch. All of their siblings have always been really successful. Like I don't know what happened with us. It's just like we struggled so much. And so growing up, they were like, please be a doctor or a lawyer or a pharmacist. I remember they were going to pull me out of school to go to pharmacy school. And I'm like, I don't want to be a pharmacist. Like, can you imagine? I would lose my mind. And so what's crazy about it is like, as they watched me like go through school, everything was like, you need to get your degree. You need to do this. And so I did all of that. And I went and worked at Yahoo and Yahoo News and Tumblr. And I was just like, this is it. And I know that they want that like safety. So now being an entrepreneur, making way more money than what I was doing when I worked in corporate America, it's still shocking to them. But I think it's because it's so risky, like in their eyes, it is not this like normal quote unquote job.
Yeah.
And so, to this day, they still don't know what I do. They don't even know what my husband does. Like, it's all very, very funny. But let's talk about mentorship. Let's talk about the Unique Assembly. Like, what was the inspiration to build this? And like, what does one get out of it? I want to know everything about it.
Yeah. So like you mentioned before, I have this podcast called SOS, but we only do like a season a year. So it's not like it's every week or every day or even every month. And that's just because that's the capacity that I have. But it helps so many people. And so I kept getting emails and DMs, and I'm sure you are very familiar with this, where people DM you and they're like, could you just help me with this one thing? And it's usually the same questions that we've answered 1,000 times before because they are kind of similar. And so I just started thinking like, wait, I do not have the bandwidth to respond to every person that like DMs me or emails me. Like that would be impossible. I'm running a company.
Yeah.
But I can create something where people can have community. And this goes back to like the fact that I moved to LA and had no contacts, friends, community. Like I was very much floating on an island. And I think that is why I keep creating community-based things.
Mm-hmm.
So the Unique Assembly essentially is a digital community. And so anyone from anywhere in the world can become a member. And every single month we do multiple classes live. So we just do it online because it's so great to be able to facilitate and have people from Boston talk to us, and then have people, from all over the world share advice and expertise. But what I truly think, I mean, all of the members would probably never agree with this, but like, I actually think that the real magic is in all of the members meeting each other. I've
100%.
always said this. And like at Create and Cultivate or any of the other conferences that I've spoken at, I always look at the crowd and I'm always thinking to myself, the advice that I can give you is going to take you so far. It's going to lift you up. And I absolutely have advice and expertise that will save you time and money, which is very important. But the people around you, like the people who are experiencing those same growing pains at the exact same time as you have to create a community with them, because once you do, you have a network. And as you all start to grow and succeed more, you'll lift each other up. And like that is kind of what happened. Jacqueline started Create and Cultivate almost at the same time as I started Unique Markets.
Yep.
It's very interesting. And as each of us and many other female entrepreneurs in LA, as we were all growing, there's Jen Gotch of Bando, like we were all starting at the same time and all experiencing the same issues. And so I think like as you hear from one another, like, do you have a good lawyer? I think I actually might need a lawyer now. I don't know, but just, I'm not sure. So I think that with the Unique Assembly, it's that you're part of this community and every month you're getting classes and you're getting a mentor session with me, and you're hearing from, like, we just had a lawyer on talking about like, what do you actually legally need to have a business and sell at markets? And people who were part of that session were like, wait, I have a website and I've been selling stuff for like a year. I never knew I needed a business license. And like in many cities, it's free, but you do need to register and actually have a business license. So it was like things like that are so helpful. And that's the stuff that I never had. Like I never had that because in the magazines, in the Forbes, the Fortune, like all of these magazines and newspapers where you're reading about entrepreneurs, who you're usually reading about are entrepreneurs that are backed financially. So they have no clue what it's like to be on the ground like you and I, who are like, we're doing this with passion, sweat, and blood. And so, I started the Unique Assembly really to like solve the issue that I had when I was starting and trying to grow, which was that I didn't have anyone around me. I didn't have a session. If I could have been part of something once a month where I learned a new skill or was able to talk to different jewelry makers around the country to be like, is there a better place to be like buying gold right now? Because like gold is super expensive right now. Like just having that community is so important. And I really, really wanted to create that. It's a paid membership community. It's only $45 a month. And it sounds partly crazy of me to say this, but obviously I am a little crazy. My whole thing, it's like the same thing that we were talking about before about self-worth. Some people will see $45 as like a wall. Like, wait a minute, I don't want to pay for this. And my response, I'm, pretty honest, like you. I like tell it like it is. I'm always like, you not paying $45, is that you not thinking that you are worth $45 a month? Because that's kind of what I know is part of it. Or it's that they don't think that they can sell $45 more. And my whole thing is like, look, pay to go to conferences, pay for podcasts if there are ones out there, or for books. Like you have to invest in yourself in order to grow your business sometimes. It shouldn't be $1,000. It shouldn't be $10,000. But even if it was $199 a month, like you have to spend something to almost prove it to yourself that you are worth it.
And literally psychologically, when you are when you invest,
Yes.
you are more invested in what you just spent money on.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
And I use the example of like, how many times have we gone on a website, downloaded this lead magnet, and the PDF just sits in our email and we forget about it.
Yeah.
We forget to print it. We forget to do anything about it. But when we spend money on it, we're like, okay, I'm going to print this. I'm going to do that. And what's really interesting, so I love digital communities. Like genuinely, I think that it is not just about the learning there for me. It is the accountability. Like I say out loud my goals in digital communities, and I know that I better not jump on this call or join this chat until I reach that, because I want them to know. And you build like lifelong friendships through it. And I hosted recently a retreat, and it's funny because the girls created their own like chat to talk, and they're like best friends.
That.
And I'm like, guys, wait, FOMO.
What about me?
Yeah, like FOMO. Don't forget, like I started this. Hello, but it's so crazy to see the power of community and how much further you can go. And so I actually hear $45 and I'm like, wow, that's it?
Yeah.
That's insane. But you don't know that until you start investing in these things.
Yeah.
Because then you see how fast you can reach your goals once you do that.
Yeah.
It is 100% the accountability. And I love that. And I love that you're creating that. Again, I go back to just the one thing that out of all the things that really inspires me about you is like, you don't do gatekeeping. You give advice as it is. And it's also not like fluffy advice.
Yeah.
You are like, this is how, like, if you're not willing to do this, it's not going to work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. And I think that we need more of that, because right now we are in a space where social media has taken over, but it's taken over in a way where, one, there's so much noise. And two, some of the advice that people are giving and getting is just, it's just not it.
Because anyone can be an expert now.
Anyone can be an expert.
That's what social media has created.
Yes.
And it's like, again, like no shade to them, but until you've owned a business, in my opinion, for more than 3 years, you can't say anything. Because most businesses, 50% of businesses won't make it past 3 years. So all of the people who are now like experts coming out and they're like coaches, and they just start like, you just started your Instagram last year or during COVID, which is great. But like, where's the track record? Yeah. Jacqueline and I talk about this all the time too. It's like, where is the track record? Doesn't mean that they're not giving good advice, but often like some of the stuff that I see out there, I'm like, it's also very inspirational. And so like, it kind of goes back to your like, the way that I give advice is very bare bones. Like I don't like to, like, I basically don't bullshit. That is very much my thing. There are too many people out there that are inspirational. And so like, it feels great to double tap like a quote that's like, oh, that motivated me. Like, I feel great today. But then like 2 hours later, you're like, I don't know how to balance my books. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what do I do?
The tangible things.
Yeah. Someone just like called me out on social media. I don't know how to respond. Like, help. What do I do? So that's also very much part of like, why I started the Unique Assembly. It's more like access to me, access to a bunch of different experts, the community aspect, and like that kind of like camaraderie. And then like, I hate to say it, but like I keep saying Instagram is dead. Who knows? I said Facebook was dead like 7 years ago in an article, and like now they have like more users than ever. So I'm like, well, I guess
maybe it's good luck. Maybe
it's like they've been around for so long, they like came full circle. Like, who the F is on Facebook? I don't know, but billions of people. But so like, I don't know if Instagram will die, but here's what I don't like about it. And there are many, many things, but this is, I think, the most important thing for listeners and people who either have small businesses or are aspiring to have a business or a side hustle. They own everything, which means they own you.
Yep.
You never want to be in a position where you don't own yourself and where you don't have freedom. And so I started to see last summer, and then I watched it and tracked it through the fall and winter. I just started to see our engagement with our audience on Instagram. And we have multiple accounts for the businesses, my personal. I just started to see a trend that I did not like, which is that yes, social media is great. Instagram has been great for the business and to like create that sense of community. But I believe that that sense of community that first made me love Instagram so much is starting to disappear. And if they're only showing our content to like 5%, 5%
Mm-hmm.
of followers, the follower count doesn't even matter. Like none of that really matters anymore. And so I realized, I was like, you know what? For those people who truly believe in what they're doing, want help, want to grow, I'm going to create a membership community that I own.
Yep.
So when I put a worksheet out about social media, 100% of the members get it.
Yeah.
Whereas right now I can be on Instagram being like, here's this social media worksheet that I came out with. It'll help you. And like 400 people see it.
It's
Of like
crazy.
70,000 people, 400 people will see it. And I'm like, what is the point?
And not only is the platform changed, but how we consume content has changed.
Yes.
Right. And so now you're spending all of this time creating this content that people might not even want it anymore.
Right.
You know,
They
whereas
might not see it
Yeah.
ever.
yeah, it's crazy. And it is really interesting to see like the dynamic and so all of my clients also have, but it's just client based of the private community. And it's interesting to see how much they learn just from that community, which I know is going to be the same for the Unique Assembly versus what they get from all of their people on Instagram.
Yes.
It's completely different.
It's completely different because, again, as human beings, we're all aspirational and we all seek inspiration.
Yep.
And the rush of endorphins that Instagram gives us is that. So I can be waking up, starting my morning, making coffee, standing there looking at my phone, and I see like a funny video and it like gives me those endorphins, or like a breakdancing video and I'm like, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whatever the content is, then I'll see like a really inspirational post about like saving money or finances and I'll be like, that's so smart. But what we all forget is that it's like bite-sized and it doesn't actually give us anything past the endorphin rush.
Right.
And so I'm like, I've just decided, I was like, I think I'm kind of done with that. You know, like I want to affect great change. I want to have a legacy of like truly helping people. Like I want to move the needle. And I've already done that. Like the proof is in the pudding. Like there are multiple people and businesses that I have helped grow to multi-million, like so far beyond my business and what I ever thought I could do, where they have 100 employees. Like they're on a
Insane.
whole other level than me, but I've helped them get there. And so it's like, that's what I take satisfaction in. And so it's not like having a bunch of people like something.
Yeah.
Which is
Completely
just
different.
short-term endorphin rush.
And it can't scale your business.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Whereas like if I can have a conversation with you, if someone asks on the message boards in the Unique Assembly, like I just got my first huge purchase order. And instead of shipping it, I'm dropping it off because the store is just like 2 miles away from me. What do I do?
Yeah. How
Like
do I
they
do
literally don't know because they've
Yeah.
never done it yet. And so it's like to have me respond to them and be like, oh, you here you go. Like to me, that's helping someone truly move the needle.
I love it. I'm so excited to see all of this come to life and just hear all of the success stories of everybody that joins the assembly. And because I do agree, like not only do you give amazing advice, but you've been through it
Yeah.
for years, years.
Yeah.
Let's do rapid fire questions.
Okay. Love it.
I'm really excited about this. What is one truth that you have recently come to terms with?
Okay. So
Besides Instagram is dead, because that's going to be the title of this podcast.
Instagram is dead. And then they shut my account down forever.
We get blocked.
So I literally last week almost blacked out with my sister-in-law, like not drinking, like nothing. We were just like, and I was like, am I having a heart attack? You know, all these things. And what I took away from it is that like for years, I have been like fooling myself in that like working really, really hard is fine. and that like I don't get stress or anxiety about anything. I pretty much don't. My personality is like I make a decision, I move on, and if it's wrong, that's fine. I lost $200,000 trying to start something during COVID. It's kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but it's gone.
Yeah.
I can't think about it anymore. But that experience did make me realize that I was totally like kidding myself and that like I was healthy. And so now I'm like, oh, I do actually have to drink more water, which is literally what the doctor told me. And I was so embarrassed. I was like,
I'm dehydrated.
This is it? She was like, you do
my
not drink
God.
enough water. And she was like, you're so severely dehydrated that I almost want to give you an IV. I'm not, but like, and I was like, that's it? I thought I was having a heart attack. Like, you know?
Yeah.
She was like, no, you're just dehydrated. So
Just drink some
the
water.
truth about me is that like, I do not drink enough water and I need to pay attention to the signs that my body are like telling when they happen instead of putting it off. For years, I've just been like, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. Like I drink a couple glasses. I was like, I drank coffee, juice, and a glass of water a day. And she was like, sorry,
It's so bad.
coffee doesn't count.
Yeah.
She was like, it actually dehydrates you. Juice, okay, a lot of sugar. And she was like, but one glass of water, no. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, I just got schooled.
Oh my God, that is the best truth that you could have came to terms with. The best part is that you were only dehydrated.
Like-
Thank God you were only dehydrated, but
But like, how many Instagram and TikToks do I have to watch where it's like, drink more water? I've seen thousands. And every time I'm like, yeah, good reminder.
Thanks.
Clearly I wasn't doing it.
yeah, I don't need it. Oh my God, it's so
Yeah.
funny. So what has been the most exciting improvement that you've seen in yourself recently besides drinking more water?
I think that I have started to realize that even though I tell other people all the time to like delegate, and like, so you have more time for yourself, I really am actually taking time for myself finally, where I just went to Europe for 3 whole weeks, which some people might be like, yeah, that's somewhat normal. Like I take a 2-week vacation. I haven't done that for a very long time where it's 3 weeks gone. Maybe I looked at email twice, but it wasn't even like a full scroll. It was just like, let me see if there's an emergency, but that's it.
That's amazing. That's
It was
amazing. What is one mistake that you've done that has taught you the most?
So I do think that hiring is a very tricky thing. Like I just said, delegating more and like getting stuff off of your plate so that you are not having everything and all of the pressure is super important for growth. Like you have to do it. What comes along with that is leadership and management of other human beings. And when you become an entrepreneur, the only reference, and still to this day, the only reference most of us have of like what is a business is what we see in TV and the movies.
Yeah.
And you'd never show a business with only 3 employees. Like,
Ever.
because visually they're like, no, we need more people in this
Yeah.
room, more desks, more this, more chatter. Where's the water cooler? You know, like visually, I understand why they do that. But so you think that a successful business has a lot of employees and that you're like the boss of everyone. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was hiring too many people. It was like, oh, I need one person to do graphic and web design. I need someone to do this. I mean, I was hiring, there was a time when I feel like I had 12 employees. Our markets take place 3 weekends a year. That's 6 days. Granted, it takes a full-time team to produce at our level, but I didn't need 12 employees.
Yeah.
So I think that I was trying to be what I thought a successful business was. And so my best advice to other people is like, just hire who you truly need to help you and also let them run with it. Like, don't micromanage, let them run with it. I know it's your baby, but you'll never grow it unless you let the people that you hire, like, take it to the next level.
Yeah, like do their thing. Trust them to do it. I love that. And Jacqueline was saying like hire for your weakness. Like you should know how to do every single thing in your business, but like hire for the things that maybe you just don't love doing or you're just not the best at. You just outsource it.
100%.
I love that. No, it's so true. This has been amazing, and I can't wait for to attend your market. Like, I need that. I will link the show in the show notes for everybody that wants to join the assembly, because I think the power of community, I talk about it on this podcast, especially all the time, of just this is what you need. Like, you just cannot get to the next level on your own. Like, you need that community. So with the podcast called She Did It Anyway, we like to end the podcast with you filling in this blank. So through fill in the blank, I did it anyway.
Through criticism and doubt on other people's part, I did it anyway.
Oh, I love it. I love that so much. I can't thank you enough for coming to be a guest. This has been so awesome. And I have literally, like, after this, we like cut it up and, the reels and put I'm like, this whole thing. Like, you just have to like sit here and watch the whole entire thing live. I mean, and we were cozy on our chairs. So this was awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope for everybody that's listening, you took so much away. Make sure to share your takeaway with me. I can't wait to talk to you about it. Thank you. Bye. And don't forget, no matter what, she did it anyway.
You did it, Mom.